So the so-called altcoin market is without work. The NFT market, there's no work involved. In various other pursuits of Wall Street, it's just workless environment of pushing buttons. This is creating an environment of lawlessness, and it's creating an environment of plunder. So it's interesting, he equates wealth with work, and he draws the analogy of work from nature. So in nature, like our friends here, the parrots, who believe that they're actually different birds than the targos / parrots, they have to work. They go hunting for worms. If they were not working for those worms or whatever they eat here in El Salvador, pupusas, probably, they wouldn't be the targo / parrot that they are today.
Right. So property and plunder, the origins of shitcoins, is what I will call this next section, because in this age of not only the dollar coming to an end, and that was a tier one, layer one money replacing gold, which had ruled for 5,000 years. Then we had U.S. Treasuries, and the U.S. Treasuries decided to implode on February 26, 2022, when the U.S. seized the reserves of another nation. So therefore, the reserves were no longer money. It was no longer property. Now, Bastiat believed that property was something given to us by God, that this was life and liberty, and property were the rights that you had, all of them, and you couldn't remove one without removing the other.
Sango is blood, so it's a blood sucker coin. It's the vampire coin. The Central African Republic, I believe, is the second poorest country in the world. Bring in Sango coin, and it'll be the poorest country in the world, because all they've done is to facilitate the ability for colonizers to come in and steal all their natural resources with the bloodsucker Sango coin. They say that it has something to do with Bitcoin. Of course it doesn't. If they wanted to join the elite class of hard money, they would simply go with Bitcoin, but that didn't last long because they didn't have the fortitude to stick with Bitcoin, and now they will pay the price.
No, well, as Bastiat pointed out, that the reason why we need law, the reason why we need governments to enforce law, life, liberty, and property, those are the things that governments should defend, is that by nature, man will always seek to get something for free rather than have to toil away and work, right? So Bitcoin and the protocol removes that through no man involved in it. Right now, laws are imposed by man. You have to go to a court, and a judge who could be bribed, who could be corrupt, might actually be paid off to decide one way or the other. Bitcoin can't do that, right? So we're in so he knew that this was the nature of man. So the nature of man is to create a shitcoin.
Well, where this drama is being played out is in countries and economies and towns where we've seen what happens when the altcoiners come in and they milk the market and they bilk the market. And we're seeing them played out in the DeFi space. So what these guys have done is they'd have to go to far afield, to little countries in Africa now that maybe haven't heard about what's happening in the DeFi space yet, and they're picking their pockets. So they're just fanning out to wherever they can find suckers. Whether it's Sango coin or any of these other DeFi or ICOs or altcoins, they're all terrible.
The IMF, the European Central Bank, the Federal Reserve Bank, the Bank of International Settlements have already warned you what's going to happen. They've told you. They told you that Bitcoin is an escape hatch. They didn't say that about Sango coin. They didn't say that about Ethereum. They didn't say that about BNB. They didn't say that about Solana. They didn't say it about Cardano. They did not say that about any crypto but Bitcoin. So only Bitcoin is an escape hatch, and they will want to not stop this plunder model. Nobody wants to stop the plunder model. That is what Bastiat proved. He said that doesn't stop. Nobody wants to stop the free flow of money.
You know, I mean, sticking to Bitcoin's been a great plan for El Salvador. I just checked out the latest tourism numbers. They're booming. They're off the chart. You know, things are happening. It's Bitcoin plus Bukele equals boom times. You know, because they're sticking with the top coin, the Bitcoin, and it's paying fantastically well. You know, the car is showing once you step out of the Bitcoin limelight, you're entering a world of pain.
I might add as well, to wrap this episode up, about what is the importance of money, why, you know, what makes a perfect money and what its function should be. Bitstein, he tweeted this: the most basic primitive of a decentralized financial system on which everything else depends is being able to move money from A to B in a censorship-resistant way on a global and open adversarial network. Only Bitcoin fixes this. So here we have everybody else trying to introduce seigniorage to the escape hatch. Those who exit, they're going to want to put a toll in, because that is what has happened since the beginning of time. If you read Frederick Bastiat, read his simple short essay called The Law from 1850, and you'll see that this is the nature of everybody else around you will want to plunder all that you worked for, all that you knew to, conserve your property, conserve your wealth through inflation-proof, plunder-proof money.
Winner. Greg, welcome.
Thanks for having me again.
Okay, Greg, bonds have had their worst first half of the year in decades. Bitcoin also had its worst quarter. This is a macro environment that the world has not seen for 40 years. So what should Bitcoiners understand about this new macro reality, and what do you expect over the next year or two?
Well, that's a lot of predicting, Max, but here's what I know. You're correct that for the first time in history of the NASDAQ was down double digits, as were long bonds. So this is a era where never before have a balanced 60-40 mutual fund, or let's say quasi-hedge fund, a balanced mutual fund, both assets, bonds and equities, suffered double-digit drawdowns. So usually, as you know, there's a balancing effect. When equities sell off, a flight to safety takes place in bonds. But bonds got crushed because of inflationary concerns, as you know. But I spent my life in high yield bonds, so I wasn't a treasury trader as much as a credit trader, and that's where I like to apply my expertise. So I believe over the next couple of years, credit traders will appreciate Bitcoin for the instrument that I have studied it as.
Oh, absolutely. It's the most asymmetric trade. It's all upside, really. Now let's talk about February 26, 2022. The U.S. seized $630 billion in reserves from Russia. Does this matter to the dollar and treasuries going forward?
I would argue that that was such a substantial event, because let's look at two things. Russia is a very large producer of oil and natural gas. I believe there will be a time when they do not desire to price their valuable natural resources in U.S. petrodollars. I think that you will see them gravitate towards potentially pricing valuable natural resources in digital energy, which is Bitcoin. Now, notwithstanding whether they do that or not, you have seen reserve banks around the world, central banks around the world, reduce their treasury, U.S. treasury holdings from 71% to below 60%.